Right now, this is a recovery mission. Talk about some of the logistics. What is most important at this point?
Hi, Nicole. Thanks for having me this morning. Um, as we all know, this is a very delicate operation. There are a lot of moving pieces. It's changing very rapidly, but what you have on site are professionals. You've got dive teams, you have first responders, and you have forensics experts. And so there's incredible communication between them. It's like a very well run uh, protocol that they follow and procedures that they follow. At this point, we know they found the black boxes, so the divers are continuing the search for the bodies, which is very grim and very difficult. In the process of trying to retrieve bodies and find bodies, there's a very large debris field that is also hampered by currents. So there's a lot of movement in the water. Pieces of the plane, potentially body parts, are not necessarily where they were yesterday or this morning. So they're bringing up and finding pieces, handing pieces to the forensics experts. They have a platform in that area where everything is collected, everything is being accounted for. And they're working in very cold water, which is very hard. It's only a certain amount of time that they'll keep teams in the water before their extremities, their hands get cold, and their feet get cold. They can't work as efficiently, and so they'll swap them out. And during that time, they'll warm up. They'll bring more divers in the water. But if this is there's constant movement. There's constantly people, divers in the water, trying to get this job done in daylight in the time that they have, which sadly it's a recovery process. So
Yeah.
they were just looking for bodies to be able to hand that over to the families.
And knowing that this is really such a gruesome task, and how large this entire area is. You mentioned the cold temperatures. How do the frigid temperatures factor into everything when it comes to not only those divers, but also to trying to retrieve the victims? I mean, in some ways, is it better that it's colder versus if this were the middle of the summer and the water were much warmer?
It's actually better having colder water that preserves the body tissues much better. I don't, again, whether it keeps the body intact, that depends on impact. That plane came down and it was like hitting a concrete wall. So whatever they're finding at this point may not be intact.
Yeah.
And they have wreckage. They're also swimming through wires. There's wreckage. There are a lot of pieces that they have to preserve aside from the bodies that will be the forensics experts to recreate and get a better picture of what happened to avoid this happening again. But I think one of the things we have to remember is that the cold is different for everybody, but there's still only a certain amount of time before the extremities get cold. Once you're in frigid and freezing waters, even though they're wearing a dry suit and they are protected from the cold as best they can be, the colder the water, the faster the heat loss. So they will feel it. It's just a matter of the physiology of whether you feel it at 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. That is really, I think, they will stay in as long as they can because they want to do this job. But one of the things I think we should remember is that these are people. They're rescuers. They're not robots. They're not machines. When we work with machines, we put them down there and they do their job for hours. We don't have to worry about them as much. When you have people, they have feelings. They have emotions. This is very physical work. This is mentally exhausting, and it's emotionally difficult as well.
It is, and
And
I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, again, these are people who are doing this recovery work. How do they do they have to separate themselves from the tragedy? How do they do that?
uh, again, one of the things when you're working, you are so focused on doing that job. They want to find bodies. They want to bring back something for families. That is what they really, I believe, are there to do. They understand that they have to work around debris. Um, but emotionally, at that moment in time, they are 100% focused on their safety, the safety of their teammates. They don't want anyone else to get hurt, and on the job at hand. I think after the fact is when it sets in that they have retrieved the body of a child. They've retrieved parts of a body. I don't think no matter how often you do this, it ever becomes easy. It's very hard mentally. And I believe that's why we also swap out teams, because you want them to recover and take a little bit of a break. It's not something when you're under stress and you've got all that adrenaline going to do this job. it doesn't really settle in until after the fact.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.